everybody, how are you? I'm going to show you some watercolor techniques. You can look at this and you can look at the PowerPoint presentation that I sent to you. We're basically going to do little watercolor techniques, kind of like we made the little booklet that had all of the different color theory vocabulary in it. So you can take a little paper like this. It's watercolor paper, it's thicker. You can make yours smaller or a little bit bigger if you want. And I had a large sheet and I cut it up into 12 pieces, but you can do it however you want. So maybe it takes a couple, like maybe you have to take 2 pieces and cut them into 6, I don't know, you can figure it out. So I'm going to basically paint my painting on one side, and then I'm going to do that for all of these, and then I'm eventually going to take glue, put it here and here, and glue the backs of it together. So as you can see, it's going to open like this. If you have a different way of, so look at, like, once I put them all together, well, I'll have 12 of them, but like, so you'll be able to open it like this. I'll be able to write on the side what the technique is. If you have a different way to make a little book, you're welcome to do that. I don't really care, but I just think it would be nice to have a booklet of watercolor techniques. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to show you, some of these you've probably already done. The first one that I'm going to show you is I'm going to make a color wheel using 3 colors, and I'm going to let them bleed together. Okay, so here I go. I've already put some water on my watercolors to soften them up a little bit. I have my paper towel. I have 2 cups of water, one for clean water, one for rinsing my brush out. So I'm going to start with red, and actually I think I'm going to use this red in here, and I'm going to paint it. I'm going to paint it in like sort of a triangular shape. Okay, so I'm going to paint my red here. Rinse out my brush. Then I'm going to take yellow. This yellow looks good. I'm going to use this yellow. Paint it here. And rinse out my brush. Then I'm going to paint my blue on. I think I'm going to use this ultramarine blue here. And paint it here. Okay. Now, one way that we can do this is to pull the colors in like this. So I'm gonna take the blue and I'm gonna pull it towards the center here. I'm gonna take the red that I used, do the same thing. And as you can see, I had a pretty loaded brush. It's pretty full. Actually, I think I meant to pull it into here. So I'm going to actually have them touch so that they can mix. I don't want it to run all the way back into my yellow, but then I'm going to take this yellow and I'm going to put it this way so that it touches the blue. And then once it gets here, you can mix this together to make the green. I'm going to mix this together to make the orange. This has a lot of water in it, which is why it's coming out pretty, not very intense. Okay, rinse this out, and I'm gonna take actually a little bit more blue and pull it into the red here and mix it together to make the purple. Okay, all right, so I think I might make that green a little bit darker. So I used this blue. I'm going to paint that in there. And then I'm going to use this yellow. Paint this in here until they join in the middle here to make this green. Okay? Alright, so I have one done. And I have 11 more to go. The next one I'm going to do is a wash. So I'm going to take this paper. Some of them are going to go super fast. I'm going to take clean, clear water. I'm going to do wet and wet. So I'm going to do clean, clear water on here. And I'm going to Can you turn the sound off? Jonah, thank you, turn the sound off. Okay, then let's see. I really love this color. It's alizarin crimson. I'm gonna take that and just see what it does when you put the wet watercolor into the wet paper. Actually, I'm gonna try to make a gradient. So a gradient going from a very intense color. So I'm gonna use a lot of the alizarin crimson up here. I'm gonna have it fade to, I'm gonna have it fade so that it gets lighter at the bottom. Okay. So I think the wet and wet is really fun to play with. So definitely, you know, see what happens. You can pull it. Oh, did I not get that part wet? So you can pull it all the way down and make, you know, a gradient from dark to medium to lighter. So this is how you get lighter values with the watercolor. Okay, could pull this down a little bit. I could just add some more. Okay. All right, so that's my wet on wets. Gonna pause to see what my next, oh, I don't think I can pause. Oh, all right, guess I don't have to keep going. Okay, the next one is, I'm gonna do wet on dry, which is super easy. Remember, I'm doing it like a book, so I'm gonna do it on the right-hand side, like it's a book. So I'm just gonna do wet on dry. So this paper's dry. What's it like when I paint wet on dry? Let's see. It's obviously, it's a lot easier to get crisp details. You can try some different colors here. Oh, I love this color of turquoise. So, yeah, let's see if I'm gonna like make this tree outside. As you can see, it's you can make a hard edge like this. It doesn't spread all over. And you can do this, like, I could theoretically take this this is like very wet. After it dries, I can have this type of sharpness on top of this. So after the paper dries, you can combine multiple techniques. That's what I'm saying. Okay, and then let's see, maybe I'll take some of this yellow and mix it with some of this and see what happens. Even when I can still make a gradient, but it's a lot more controlled when you're painting wet on dry paper. So as you can see, it also doesn't like maybe bleed or fade as much as it does on wet paper. Okay, so that's another version. I'm running out of spaces to put this stuff. Sorry. Okay. The next one, I'm gonna do this overlaying wash. So first I'm gonna lay down some warm colors and I'm gonna go over it with cool colors. So some warm colors, I'm just gonna take some yellow and paint some stripes on here. Take some orange. Oops, it's kind of globby. I'm gonna take some of this I have over here. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay, I realize you might not have all of these colors. Just use the colors that you have. It's not a big deal. Let me try this cadmium color. So we're gonna see the difference between different transparent colors here too. It's important, another lesson that we're gonna have is which of these colors are transparent and which are opaque. And when we're doing watercolor, it's kind of important to know which ones are which. Okay, I think I'm gonna try putting this red on, see what that looks like. Try this orange. Okay. All right, I'm gonna set this aside and let it dry before putting the colors over the top. As you can see, this should go pretty fast. Even though this assignment seems pretty long, you could do it all in one sitting, just like I'm going to show you on this video. Okay, So the next I'm going to do is variegated wash, which is using a lot of different colors. So again, I'm going to use clear water, paint some clean clear water on the entire paper here. This one is really fun. You could also think about like what might you use some of these techniques for, you know, like when you're, if you want to have a wash like this, like what can you see this as? I mean, maybe not in red, but what if it was, say, in blue or green? Think of some things that you could use that for. You know, I would say like maybe a sky or water could look nice. Maybe you could use it for a million things. There's just a million things you could use it for. Even when you're doing portraits, you could do, you know, outside it's really gray. I could use it for the cement or the pavement. Okay, so variegated wash, I'm just going to take a bunch of different colors and drop it in to the wet, onto the wet paper and see what happens. I love this. This is this is so fun. I think it's extra fun, so I don't know, kind of like geek out as things like this. Okay. Eventually you can see that all of these are going to start running together, right? What do you think this technique could be good for? I'm using a lot of different colors, but you know, you wouldn't have to necessarily use a bunch of different colors. You could just use like a few colors if you wanted to. So what do you think this could be used for? The thing that comes to my mind, is maybe if you're trying to represent fireworks or a crowd. I mean, there's like a million things that you could do for this. Also, this again is it's just really fun. So have fun with this. See what happens when the colors touch each other and they blend together. You know, sometimes, you know, obviously if they're complementary colors, they're gonna turn some neutral colors. You can see also the water is in color is pooling on the edge here, and that's cool. I can take it and what do you call it? Lift it and let it run all around. These also can just, maybe you're just trying to make a really nice abstract image, right? So this is just something fun. This is your variegated wash. I'm going to set that aside and let that dry. Okay. Another one, let's see. We did wet on wet. Oh, we're going to do dry on dry, which is sort of a weird one because watercolor doesn't really spread that well when it's dry. But basically, you would take a dry brush. Over here, I have a brush that's pretty dry. And I'm going to find some paint that is on the dry side. I mean, you can't do this if it's like totally dry. But I'm going to take some drier paint, and it's like what we call scumbling. You can imagine that maybe if you were trying to make some kind of texture, you could do this sort of texture over the top of a color or another texture. I mean, what might you need this for? Oops, that's a little too wet. But you can see, like, maybe you're trying to get the texture of a tree, or maybe you're trying to get the texture of like pavement or cement or whatever. So this is just, you know, this is one thing. This is dry on dry. Okay. And I think maybe if you use different paintbrushes, maybe it would come out different too. I don't know if this is going to work. This might be too wet. Oh, sorry. I forgot I used that to do the wash. So that's still wet. This one is dry. So I'm going to try to find a okay, but you get it. This is more like something if you're using like a texture of some sort. Okay, that's dry on dry. Next we did wet on wet. Let's see, wet on wet, color wheel, wet on dry, dry on dry, the variegated wash, and the overlapping. We're gonna do that when it's finished being dried. Okay, now we're gonna practice. Well, actually, no, we're gonna do a. Oh, we already did this graded color wash. All right, we're gonna do a 2-color wash. Okay, so that's just 1 color. We're gonna have 2 colors fade together for this one. Okay, so again, I'm gonna take my brush and my clean water, get it wet. Obviously this is easier if you have a bigger brush. This is my wash brush. Maybe yours is even bigger than this. Okay, once you have it all wet, then we're gonna add the color. Which 2 colors should I fade together? I'm gonna fade together 2 of my favorite colors. So just like I did before, the alizarin crimson, I really love this color. I mean, I just like red. So I'm gonna fade this. Needs a little bit more water. So I'm gonna add this on one end, and I'm gonna paint it to the halfway point. And as you can see, it's getting a little bit lighter as it's going to the center. I passed the halfway point a little bit. Now I'm gonna rinse out my brush. I'm gonna take some clean water, and I'm gonna take this other favorite color that I have here. I love this like turquoise color. So I'm gonna paint that on this end. I don't know what's gonna happen when they meet. It might turn gray, it might turn some purplish color. It's probably gonna be purplish gray is my guess. Okay, and then I'm just going to continue to fade it past the center. Actually, I'm gonna rinse this out because there's too much color in there. And as you can see, it's starting to bleed together. I'm gonna take some more of the alizarin crimson and force it to go this way. So, because it seems like the turquoise is a little bit stronger. So as you can see, it is sort of turning this purplish gray. Yeah, so there, that's pretty decent 2-color gradation. Okay, the next one that we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to lift the color off. So I might have showed you this on the other video that I made, but when you're watercolor painting, it's not totally unforgivable. Like some people are like, oh, I don't like watercolor because once you paint it, you know, you can't make a mistake. But that's just not true. This paper towel is your eraser, okay? So we're gonna, and also you can lift it off with some color too. So let's say I'm gonna paint on, I'm just gonna like do some scribbles here. And I'm just painting whatever, not really. Okay, let's say I'm like, oh, you know what? I don't like what I did. I didn't mean to paint that turquoise color there. I could take it and I can just lift it off by blotting it. It's not totally coming off. In some cases, it does totally come off. I think it depends on the color that you use. But you can see that it does take a lot of the color off, especially if it's like a darker color like this. It will, you know, lift it off. So in some cases, this can act like an eraser, and you can also use it to like create clouds. So let's say, for example, I want to make this like a sky, okay? And I want to make it like clouds. I'm gonna put the color on. You never know, sometimes there's green in the sky. It could be like the northern lights, right? So I could take my, I could kind of crinkle it up and make it look like a little blotter, and I can sort of blot out some clouds if I want. Of course, you're looking at that upside down, but you can see how this could be the beginning of some clouds. It might not be like the whole, like might not be over. Like I might have to wait for it to dry a little bit and then go back over and do some more details. But for the most part, you know, I can get some details out. Okay, I'm just gonna show you this. It's like, okay. So that's blotting out with a paper towel. And then I also would like you to try lifting. Try it. I'm sorry, I'm running out of space to put my stuff. Okay. All right. Let's see, fold it in half. You can also lift off the watercolor. So let's try lifting. Some nice bright orange here. Some cadmium and some alizarin crimson. Okay, so let's say you also want to lift some color off and you don't want to use the paper towel because maybe it's not sharp enough or whatever. You can take a clean brush and you can try to lift some of the color out by going over it with the brush. So you can see how it works sometimes better if it's a little bit drier, but you can see how I am taking the color off by I'm reigniting the color, and then I can pull it off easier. Okay. You could even go back then with paper towel. Okay. So this is lifting with a brush. You have to have kind of a dryish brush to lift the water out, because the whole point is that you're lifting the color and the water off, right? Okay, so this is lifting with a brush. Definitely try that one. Oh, and then one of my favorite ones is using salts. Okay. So, oh, and then you guys probably don't have, if you have rubber cement or masking fluid, you should definitely try that. I don't think I have either of those things at home here. I don't know. You could try tape. I think tape could work. But if you have, like I said, if you have masking fluid or I can try using this tape. If you have masking fluid or rubber cement, you do your design. If you want to keep the paper white, that's what this does. Is it keeps the paper white, and you don't want to use this white from your colors. You want to use the white of the paper. So, all right, this is all just experimenting, and I'm gonna actually wait for this to dry before I take off the tape. If you put the masking fluid on, you let it dry first, and then you do your painting, and then at the very end you take your finger and you rub it off like this. I'm gonna get some masking fluid. I'll do another lesson on that, but you could definitely try that as well. Okay, so that is gonna be masking out some white areas, and then we're also gonna use some salts. So I'm sure when you were a kid you probably used the salt technique. Really fun. So let's say I'm painting a fish or something like a fish, right? This is, don't really know what a fish looks like. All right, this is my version of a goldfish. I don't even know that they have lips like that. I don't know. I don't have a goldfish. I don't know what it looks like. Okay. Let me figure some colors here. Okay. And then what I'm gonna do, just blend it in some more colors. I imagine they have some sort of tail-like thing here. I don't know. Okay, now let's say I want to give it like a texture. I'm going to try adding a little pinch of salt to my little goldfish friend here. Let's see what happens. Where's my salt? Here's my salts. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of this on. Basically the salts, it soaks up the water and it acts like the paper towel or the dry brush that we used earlier. Okay, you can't really see the total effect of this until after it's dry and we brush the salt off. Okay, so again, we'll come back to that in just a minute. All right, I think we can come back to this. This is dry. Another painting dripped on it. Again, using the paper towel to lift off anything that I don't want. Okay, now I'm gonna go over this with cool colors, just because what we're looking at here is we're overlaying the colors to see like which ones might be transparent or which ones might not be transparent. Okay, so I'm gonna take some of this blue. This is the ultramarine blue, and I'm gonna paint over it. And you can see where in some cases you can see the color coming through. That means, you know, it's kind of transparent. This one, the cobalt blue, I think is less transparent, so I don't think we're going to be able to see that at all, but we'll see. Oh, it's so interesting. It's actually resisting, like in this yellow. I don't know why it's resisting. I bet it is. Try this. See. Oh wait, we're not doing that. I'm gonna try these colors in here. Okay. I'm gonna try this dark blue. Also, it's kind of nice to see like glazing techniques. Glazing is when you paint a wet color over a dry color, and you know, the old masters use this a lot in a lot of their, not even in just watercolor, but in a lot of different techniques. Okay, I'm gonna try this green and see what happens when I paint that over. You know, sometimes, you know, you might want that color and you're like, oh, I can get that color by overlaying orange and green. It's almost like a blackish color. All right, I'm gonna do one more. I'm gonna try this green. Okay. Okay, so here's this overlaying glazing technique. And what else? Okay, I'm gonna also try to make here I'm gonna make a little cast shadow. So let's say I have, first I'm gonna draw it with the dry paper, and I'm gonna draw it with the wet paint. So let's say there is a, what do you call it? A glass. This is gonna be my glass. I didn't leave much room for cast shadow. Okay. Okay, so actually I'm going to blur that out a little bit because that is, okay. All right. now I want to make a cast shadow down here. And I'm going to do it with the wet and wet technique. So I'm going to paint on where I want it to spread. I'm going to paint on with clear water, because this is, again, so you can like, there's a lot of techniques where you would do this with flowers, with a lot of things. You only get wet the parts of the paper that you want it to be really fluid and watery. So like, I think that's part of the problem. People just use too much water or not enough water, but they're not like as controlled about it. So now if I want to make this area look like it's a cast shadow, maybe I would use, I think it's kind of nice to mix the complementary colors together, or complementary colors together to make the cast shadow. So I'm going to mix orange and blue together, make this color, and I'm going to paint it just in here, and you can see that it's just going to spread into the area that's wet. And it also starts to fade so that it gets lighter as it pushes that way. So let me, you could even add like a little bit of water and pull it that way if you want. Okay. All right. So this is my cast shadow with the wet and wet technique. Okay, and I think that should be 12, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna take the tape off of this one so that you can see that the paper was preserved. So I did ask you guys a long time ago to buy artist tape like this. I have a bad feeling that some of you left it in your bin at school. You don't really need it, but it's helpful. So if you have it at home, this is like one way that you can use it. It's meant to block off the color from the paper, and you can also tape your paper down to like some sort of surface that will leave like a nice white border. Okay, so this is the first part. I think I finished all of them, right? Oh, well, I'll show you this when, I should have done this one first. I'm going to put the book I'm going to put the book together, and then I'll show you a final example of the book. And this is still wet, so I'll show you what this looks like. But actually, you should try it yourself. So you're going to make these 12 little paintings and for this week, and then I'll have you assemble it for another week. So, okay, I miss you guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.